Welcome back to another episode of the Just Ink About It podcast all about tattoos, their history, their origin stories, what they once meant, what they now may mean. In this episode, we are going to deep dive even further into a topic that started this whole thing off on TikTok: Russian tattoos, and in particular, Russian prison tattoos. So, I think all tattoos gonna, especially over time, the stigma is kind of breaking now. But I think there was definitely a period in time where if you had tattoos, particularly if those tattoos were in a very visible place like your hands, your neck, your face, anything along those lines, people automatically assumed that you've done some jail time. And I think a lot of tattooing styles definitely are influenced from prison tattoos, whether that be from Russia or Korea, Japan, America, Ireland, England, Europe, anywhere. But in this episode, we are going to solely focus on Russian prison tattoos and what they may mean. Because me personally, I find this topic super, super, super interesting. And as I said, it was a video on tattoo origins, and in particular, a lot of those tattoos that I touched on were Russian prison tattoos. So I thought only fitting that we do a deep dive into some more Russian prison tattoos. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode. So, starting off with our first tattoo, we see dollar bills, we see skyscrapers, we see a man in a black suit with a big grin and some dark sunglasses on, brandishing a machine gun, and the initials US stamped across. This conveys the inmates' love for an American mafia lifestyle. And the eyes that we see above the skyscraper, they mean I'm watching you. And that is a direct message to other inmates, letting them know that they're being watched. The next tattoo that we see is this big giant back piece. This is a variation on the myth of Prometheus, who was chained to a rock as his punishment for tricking Zeus in Greek mythology. The sailing ship means that the bearer does not engage in normal work and is most likely a travelling thief who is very prone to escape. The next image we see, and we see these quite a lot in Russian tattoos and prison tattoos, they are monasteries, churches, cathedrals. I read once before, I can't re-find the article or the documentary that I watched, but it touched on the amount of steeples on the churches or the cathedral. It's they've served a sentence for each steeple. So you see like big back pieces, and they've got tons of steeples all over them. So these are people that, have essentially committed their entire lives to a life of crime. We also see the Virgin Mary, saints, and angels displayed on the chest or the back. And this is a devotion to thievery. Skulls indicate that he was convicted of murder, and coffins also represent a murder conviction. They represent burying their victim. The 8 pointed stars that we see on the clavicles, we touched on this in the original video, the one that started all this off. These donate a high ranking member of the criminal organization, or a band of thieves if they're in prison. But it is high ranking members that have the 8 pointed stars on the clavicles. The bow tie that we see in this picture, in this gentleman, a bow tie pretty much similar to this one, positioned in the same spot across the collarbones. was often forcefully applied to a pickpocket or somebody who had broken the thieves' code and sided with authorities. Um, if there was a dollar sign in the middle of the bow tie, this represented that the man was either a safecracker or a money launderer. The next image we look at, we see has a snake wrapped around his neck. The snake around the neck symbolises a past drug addiction or an ongoing drug addiction. And the trousers that this photo is wearing are only issued in maximum security Russian prisons. So these prisoners have gone to like the absolute pit of hell. If Russian prisons are hell, this place is a deep pit within those hells. And you're only really sent there if you've committed serious crimes, such as like high profile murders or multiple murders or paedophilia, and you are not subject to parole if you are ever sent there. In that original video on TikTok, again, we touched on epaulets on the shoulders. Again, the epaulets on the shoulders denoted rank. So for high-ranking members of criminal organisations, criminal gangs, or, you know, a code of thieves, whether it be inside or outside of prison. On these epaulets, we often see stars or skulls. These generally mean that, like, I'm a slave to no camp. No one can make me work. The strong will win. The weak will die. Horses die from work. All of those kind of connotations kind of come with that. Generally, members with these epaulets will also have the nicknames of Major, Colonel, you know, paying direct respect to the rank that they have to have earned those tattoos. The next image we look at is of a Muslim prisoner, and on his stomach we see a religious building with a crescent moon. We also see a lighthouse on his arm, and the lighthouse was to represent freedom. The pieces we see on his wrist, we can't see the other photo, but there is another photo where he has the same band on each wrist, and these were to signify that he was sentenced to more than 5 years. The words on his arm read, remember me, don't forget me, and I've waited 15 years for you. The next picture we see of this man, this Russian prisoner, with eyes tattooed on his stomach. So everywhere that I could find references to this, the eyes on the very, very lower stomach were to essentially mean that this prisoner was homosexual, and his penis would essentially act as the nose to those eyes. The stars on his shoulders again show that the inmate has criminal authority. The medals that he has on his chest, they existed before the revolution and are signs of defiance to the Soviet regime. The next picture we see of this older Russian man, you see he has roses just on his chest, just below the woman's face and beside his nipple. This rose means that he turned 18 years of age while in prison. He has an SOS on his forearm, which does not mean save our souls. Has a couple of meanings. Save me from judgment, or another meaning is bitches robbed my freedom. The next picture we see is of a much younger man, and he has some text on his right arm which reads, save love and keep freedom. His left arm reads sinner, while his chest reads each to their own, and the words underneath the skull read God against everyone, everyone against God. He also has a gun wielding cowboy which shows that he is a thief prepared to risk and exploit any opportunity. Then we see another man, a rather intimidating looking man, if I do say so. He has a skull and crossbones that show that the prisoner is serving a life sentence. A girl catching her dress on a fishing line is commonly worn by people convicted of rape. The words above his waist read, "I fuck poverty and misfortune." And on his stomach he has what appears to be a Georgian Judith, which is a symbol of seductive women who portrayed noble men. It's a piece of artwork from 1504, and I'm almost certain I pronounced the name of it completely incorrectly. The next image we see is the first thing that jumps out of this image is a Nazi party armband tattooed on this man. So Nazi symbols often mean that the inmate is a Nazi sympathizer, that he has fascist sympathies, but more usually it is inked on as a protest towards prison administration. During the Soviet period, the authorities forcefully removed these Nazi tattoos. Tattoo of the mermaid on his stomach is often tattooed on prisoners who have been sentenced for child molestation. And then on the next image we see here, so if you're watching these on the YouTube, you'll see the reference images pop up on screen, or if you're watching it on TikTok, you'll see the images pop up on screen. The words on his arm read, "Thank you, dear motherland, for my ruined youth." The dagger through his neck means that the criminal has committed murder while in prison and is available for hire to do the same thing again. The drop of blood coming off of the end of the blade often means the number of murders that he has committed. So very similar to the American style teardrops we see on the face, he's got them coming off the blade of the knife. The next image we see this inmate shows two designs that depict the devil on either shoulder facing inwards. This shows that the inmate has a deep hatred towards authority. This style of tattoo is often seen with the devil having a big grin and baring its teeth. This is to literally symbolise baring your teeth towards the system, and are sometimes accompanied by anti-Soviet scripts. The next image we see is the Madonna and Child, and this is often a talisman sort of image for thieves, as it acts for a guardian for the misfortune and those of misery. It often may mean that the thief has been, that the bearer of this tattoo has been, a criminal or a thief from a very early age, literally like a child of a prison. And then last but not least, we see this big, huge chest piece of a double-headed eagle, which was the Russian state symbol, which dates way back to the 15th century. And after the fall of communism, it was replaced by what we see now as the hammer and sickle, as the Russian coat of arms. So this Soviet era tattoo is a bold symbol of rage towards the USSR. The Statue of Liberty we see on the left-hand side of the tattoo, or the wearer's right hand side, represents a longing for freedom. So I think, like, as interesting as a lot of these tattoos are, definitely wouldn't recommend rushing out and getting any of these. Rushing, no pun intended there, but yeah, definitely wouldn't be making, an appointment for my tattooist very soon to be putting any of these things on my body anytime soon. if you like some of the meanings behind these tattoos, I would suggest looking up different types of artwork, trying to rework some of these pieces of artwork to essentially suit, you know, the meanings that you want to put on your work. That's the beauty of tattooing. Like, every tattoo that you get, you can place your own meaning to it. But just bear in mind that if you have a mermaid tattoo, you know, it definitely doesn't mean that you've went to prison for child molestation. If you have a girl lifting up her skirt, definitely doesn't mean that you've been to prison for rape. We see a lot of pin-up girls lifting up their skirts. We see a lot of sailor men, a lot of sailors and people in the Navy and stuff have mermaid tattoos because of its nautical reference. The meanings of these particular tattoos on these particular men, in the areas and situations that they find themselves in, that's where those meanings stick from. So if you happen to find yourself in a spot of trouble and you end up in a Russian prison for God knows what reason, and you see someone with stars on their clavicles, you know that they're a high-ranking member of a criminal gang. If you see someone with a mermaid on their stomach, means that they've most likely been convicted of child molestation. If you see someone with eyes on the very lower stomach, it means that they're most likely gay. So just bear those in mind before you go rushing out for your next tattoo. That the meanings of some of these tattoos could mean very different things in different places, in different cultures. But I sincerely hope none of my listeners or my viewers here find themselves on the wrong end of Russian law and end up brushing shoulders with any of these sort of gentlemen that have clearly been convicted of serious crimes. All the photos you see in this here episode, if you are watching it on YouTube or on TikTok, they're from a photographer called Arkady Bronoghiv. I think that's how you say his name. I'm probably absolutely butchering this poor guy's name, but amazing photography. Super gritty, super black and grey. Really shows off the tattoo work in, you know, a super realistic, and it's not glorified in any way, and it's not stylized in any way. It's very documentation of almost this secret language of this like Russian criminal code. So if you are watching this, or if you are listening to this podcast on Anchor or Spotify or wherever you find this podcast living, I would recommend you head over to the TikTok or to the YouTube and watch this episode again with the reference images, because you'll get so much more value for the content if you can see the images that I'm talking about. And on that note, we shall wrap this up here. I just want to say a Happy New Year. For those listening to the podcast and not watching it, I am wearing half of my tuxedo for our New Year's party, which is about to get kicked off downstairs. So I'll wrap this up now and say Happy New Year. When you're listening to this, it will be 2022. So big thank you to everybody who supported TikTok, supporting the YouTube and supporting the podcast, which literally just launched in the last couple of days, the very tail end of 2021. And yeah, I can't wait to see what 2022 brings with all this content, and as the audience is ever growing and ever engaging. I get tons of messages on Instagram, people sending me pictures of their tattoos, asking me tattoo advice, all this sort of stuff, which is absolutely amazing. It's one of the things I love so much about the tattoo community, is everybody loves talking about their tattoos and loves talking about other people's tattoos. So thank you so much for following along. Thank you so much for sending me messages and engaging and constantly commenting on the TikToks and sharing them with other people, tagging your friends in them. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. So, on that note, Happy New Year, and I will catch you in the next episode of this, where we will cover Celtic tattoos. As an Irishman and as someone who has a lot of Irish followers and a lot of American followers, a lot of people have asked about Celtic tattoos. So tune in for the next episode on Celtic tattoos, and trust me, it is an interesting one. And I'll catch you then.